Chosen ones, you feel it, don't you? That pull in your spirit. That quiet knowing that you were never designed to walk the same path as the masses. Since birth, you've been marked, not by man, but by the divine. While others wandered in circles, you questioned the script. You felt the invisible weight of something ancient pressing on your chest at night, whispering, "There's more." And you were right. The world has done everything in its power to convince you that you're just another soul floating through chaos. But underneath the noise, behind the veil of your everyday life, a deeper truth has been pulsing like a hidden heartbeat, waiting to be remembered. That truth? Your origin is not of this world's making. It is sacred, cosmic, and terrifying to those who've tried to keep it buried. They taught you to doubt yourself, to mock anything that couldn't be explained by logic or science. But what they fear most is not your mind, it's your memory. If you ever remembered who you truly are, the lies they built would crumble like sandcastles beneath a divine wave. This isn't just a journey of discovery. This is a reckoning. Because you didn't just happen to be born in this era. You were sent, crafted in the unseen realm, forged in fire and released into this timeline for a purpose greater than your pain, your struggle, or even your understanding. You've been walking in disguise, but that disguise is beginning to tear at the seams. Your true form is emerging. The signs around you weren't accidents, the dreams, the synchronicities, the moments you should have been destroyed but somehow made it through. These were all whispers from your origin, signals from the source beckoning you home. You are a key, a code, a spark lit by divine intention. And now, the ones who lied to you, who veiled your power in shame and confusion, they are terrified because the time of unveiling has arrived. Before you ever took your first breath, something sacred was etched into the very code of your being. You weren't just born, you were activated. Deep within your DNA lies a blueprint far older than this civilization, a spiritual architecture woven with divine intention. Science has barely scratched the surface of what human genetics truly hold, and even then, they've ignored the most important question. What if your very cells carry the memory of another realm? Modern thought limits DNA to biology, a mere strand of nucleotides mapping your traits and appearance. But the ancients knew better. They understood the body as a vessel of the soul, and the soul as an eternal flame that stretches far beyond a single lifetime. Hidden in ancient texts, mystical traditions, and long-suppressed scrolls is a recurring truth. Some are born carrying codes that the world cannot decipher. These codes aren't meant to fit in. They're meant to awaken timelines, shift realities, and expose deception. That's why you've always felt a sense of difference, of displacement. You've walked in rooms and sensed energy before words were spoken. You've met people and known their intentions before they formed a smile. You've had dreams that felt more real than your waking life, visions that vanished before you could write them down, and moments of overwhelming intuition that couldn't be explained. This isn't sensitivity, it's memory, and it lives in your DNA. Every hardship you faced wasn't just random chaos. It was an attempt to suppress the divine intelligence embedded in you. Trauma, doubt, confusion. These are the tools of the unseen architects who've labored for centuries to rewrite your origin story. They know that if the chosen ever remembered who they are, the illusion would collapse. The world is not afraid of your rebellion, it's terrified of your remembrance. This blueprint isn't activated by books or degrees, it's triggered by truth. Every time you encounter a message that sends chills through your spine or tears through your eyes without reason, that's your DNA recognizing itself. You are not learning, you're remembering. And every memory draws you closer to your original design. You weren't designed to merely survive or chase comfort. You were designed to rebuild the broken, illuminate the hidden, and disrupt the systems of control that were meant to keep the masses asleep. Your presence is a glitch in the matrix. You are the error in their program. Because the truth is, the divine blueprint inside you isn't compatible with the lies that rule this world. And yet, if this blueprint is real, why don't more people see it? Why don't you remember everything all at once?
Why has this sacred code been allowed to sleep within you for so long? The answer lies not in the blueprint itself, but in those who feared it most. There are forces, seen and unseen, that have gone to unimaginable lengths to keep you from unlocking what's already inside you. They've built false histories, rewired your perception, and even altered time itself to make sure you never found the mirror that reveals who you are. But the mirror is near. And once you see your reflection for what it truly is, everything will change. From the moment you opened your eyes in this world, the programming began. Soft, silent, and subtle. It didn't come through loud commands, but through repetition, distraction, and artificial comfort. The world wrapped you in a script, a carefully designed narrative that told you who you were, what to believe, and what was normal. And beneath it all was one goal: make you forget. They didn't need to burn books or chains to control you. All they had to do was flood your mind with noise, images, and systems that pushed your divine memory further and further into the background. Schools taught repetition, not revelation. Media fed you fear, not freedom. Religion told you to look up for salvation, never inward to the place where it had always been hidden. The programming wasn't accidental, it was crafted. And you were never its target. Your potential was. Think back. How many times were you told not to trust your intuition? How many times did your truth feel too heavy, too strange, or too out there to share with others? That wasn't coincidence. That was the Matrix doing its job. The Matrix isn't just a movie, it's a metaphor for the invisible system built to keep the awakened asleep. It rewards conformity and punishes curiosity. The moment you question the illusion, the system tightens around you. Not to harm you, but to keep you from remembering what it fears most: your divine identity. You were not born to fit into this world's version of success or sanity. You were born to rise above it. But to do that, you had to walk through the fog first. You had to experience what it feels like to forget, so that your remembrance would not just be knowledge, it would be power. Because when you remember something that was stolen from you, it comes back stronger, louder, and unstoppable. This world is saturated with false lights, shiny distractions, and hollow achievements. It whispers promises of safety, love, and belonging, but only if you play by its rules. Yet somehow, deep inside, you knew the rules were broken. You couldn't explain why you felt disconnected in rooms full of people, or why you questioned things others accepted blindly. That unease wasn't confusion. It was your soul resisting the programming. There's a reason the system teaches people to fear the unknown, to fear themselves, because in the unknown is where your memory lives. It's where your spirit begins whispering again. And every whisper threatens to unravel the carefully constructed lie that has kept the masses tame. But the memory is not gone. It's waiting. Beneath the labels you were given, beneath the fear you were taught, beneath the silence you were forced into. It's there, like a spark under ashes, ready to ignite. And once that spark lights up, the programming can't hold you anymore. The system breaks, the script dissolves, and the world you've always seen behind the veil begins to show itself. Long before your first memory, before your first breath, there was a signature etched upon your spirit, a divine mark not made by human hands. It is the seal of the eternal, placed by the one who knew your name before time began. This mark, subtle yet sacred, is the imprint of Yeshua, the living blueprint of divine purpose. It was never written on your skin, but on your soul. And because of it, you've always been watched, not by the world's eyes, but by forces that exist just beyond the veil, both light and dark. The presence of this seal is not always easy to understand. It reveals itself in the tension between who you were told to be and who you can't stop becoming. It speaks through the ache that won't go away, the hunger that no earthly success can satisfy. It is why certain things in your life couldn't kill you, and why others were allowed to break you just enough to awaken something ancient within you. The seal doesn't prevent pain, but it protects purpose. Yeshua once said, "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me." That voice you've heard in your stillness, the one that calls you back when you start to drift, it's not your imagination. It's your inheritance. Even when you didn't know him, he knew you. The world may have tried to redefine you, to rename you, to claim you for its own. But the seal was never removed. It cannot be. Only hidden. And so, they tried to cover it with distractions, distortions, and despair. They tried to drown it in false doctrine, in systems that praised image over truth. They rebranded the sacred as superstition, turned spirit into spectacle, and made the name of Yeshua something to be feared or forgotten. But they failed. Because his mark is not maintained by religion, it's activated by remembrance. That's why you've always felt like you didn't belong here. Why your soul burns for something higher, even when your hands are full of everything the world told you to chase. You were never meant to blend in, because what rests upon you was meant to stand apart. You carry not only potential, but prophecy. This seal attracts resistance. The ones who walk with it often face storms others never will. You weren't cursed, you were chosen. Not chosen to be above, but chosen to awaken. Chosen to carry light into systems built on shadow. You've been attacked not because you're weak, but because of what you carry. Darkness doesn't fight what it does not fear. Still, the question remains, why was this seal placed on you in the first place? Why you, among so many others who move through life untouched by this deep pull toward the divine? Perhaps the answer isn't in the seal itself, but in what it's meant to unlock. Because every mark is a key, and every key belongs to a door. But what kind of door requires a seal forged in eternity, and what waits on the other side once it opens? You were born into a theater where the roles were already written, the costumes laid out, and the script rehearsed. From the very start, you were handed an identity, shaped not by truth but by design. It came in the form of names, titles, numbers, skin color, gender, nationality, expectations. You were told who to be before you even had a chance to ask why. This wasn't guidance, it was programming. An illusion constructed so carefully that most never question it, never even realize they're living someone else's version of reality. They told you to follow a path, go to school, get a job, find stability, build a life. But they never asked what your soul needed, never paused to wonder if you were born for something that couldn't be measured by degrees or salaries. Every system you encountered pushed you further from yourself. The deeper you went into the illusion, the more your divine design was buried beneath layers of conditioning. They taught you to fear your own voice, to doubt your own mind, to silence the parts of yourself that didn't fit their mold. But underneath it all, something never sat right. You sensed the cracks in the story. You felt the weight of a name that didn't quite belong. There were moments where you looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the life you were living. That unease wasn't failure. It was awakening. The false identity they gave you was never meant to hold the weight of your soul. It was too small for the mission you carry. This illusion is reinforced by comparison. They show you images of success, beauty, worth, and identity, and then tell you to chase them. But the more you chase what isn't yours, the more you lose touch with what is. And that's the trap. The illusion isn't just external, it becomes internal. You begin to measure your value by how well you perform in a system that was never designed for your truth. You weren't meant to perform, you were meant to transform. But the world fears those who break character. The moment you stop playing your assigned role, the system starts to resist you. People may call you rebellious, lost, even dangerous. But the danger isn't you. It's what happens when others see your courage and begin to question their own mask. You've probably felt it already. That pull to strip away everything that isn't real. It's painful, like peeling back skin, because the identity you've worn has been with you for so long it feels like part of you. But when you finally begin to release it, something powerful starts to rise from beneath the surface. The real you, the one who remembers. This world invests billions into keeping you asleep, distracted, and unsure. Because when you step into your true identity, you stop being controlled, you stop following, and you start leading. And that terrifies the architects of the illusion. So if what you've lived isn't the full truth, if your identity was manufactured and handed to you, who are you really underneath it all? And what part of your soul has been waiting quietly for the moment you're finally ready to remember? There have been whispers throughout history, threads of prophecy woven into scripture, scrolls and oral traditions that speak of a time when certain souls would awaken. Not kings, not priests, not scholars, but ordinary people who carried extraordinary blueprints within them. These individuals would not rise through power or prestige, but through remembrance. They would carry the voice of the eternal in modern form. They would disrupt, rebuild, and reveal. You may not realize it, but simply by being who you are, questioning, sensing, remembering, you are walking in the very path they foresaw. You've never needed to read every sacred text to be part of the story. The truth is encoded in your bones. Your steps align with ancient patterns that long predate this world's structures. The dreams you've had, the moments of synchronicity, the divine timing of events that shifted your path, they aren't accidents. They are echoes of something written before you were born. You are fulfilling prophecy not through performance, but by simply becoming what you were always meant to be. There are those who will try to make prophecy a rigid doctrine, something locked in the past or guarded by institutions. But prophecy was never meant to be caged. It is alive, breathing through time, responding to those who carry its frequency. And you, without realizing it, have answered that call. Every time you followed an unseen nudge, left something that no longer fit, or chose to trust what your spirit was whispering over what the world was shouting, prophecy was unfolding through you. You've probably felt the tension of not quite fitting into the expectations placed on you. That discomfort is sacred. It means you weren't made to fit into the mold. They were made to break around you. The discomfort is the space where old systems collapse and new light enters. You are not here to repair what is crumbling. You are here to build what is next. Prophets weren't always celebrated. Most were misunderstood, rejected, even persecuted. They walked lonely paths not because they were wrong, but because they were ahead. You've likely felt that same isolation, the heaviness of knowing, of feeling too much, seeing too deeply, caring beyond what makes sense. This isn't weakness. It's the weight of the calling. You are carrying something that was seen long ago, and the world around you is just beginning to catch up. There's a reason you've survived things that should have broken you. There's a reason your heart still burns when others have gone numb. There's a reason your spirit keeps waking you up in the middle of the night, whispering truths that no one else seems to hear. You are in alignment with the unseen, and the unseen has been waiting for you. Yeshua spoke often in parables, not to confuse, but to protect the truth from those who weren't ready to receive it. He said, "He who has ears to hear, let him hear." That was never just about sound, it was about recognition. The ones who are part of the prophecy will always feel it before they understand it. But if you are already walking in the words written long ago, what else has been foretold that now waits in the shadows of your becoming? There are moments in your life that glow a little brighter than others, not because of circumstance, but because of meaning. Moments that feel like they were planted long before you arrived, sacred echoes disguised as coincidences. These are not accidents, they are clues. And if you've ever felt like something was trying to get your attention from just beyond the veil, you're not imagining it. These signs are how the divine speaks to those who still carry the seal of purpose. And among the greatest of these messengers is Yeshua himself.
Yeshua never spoke for the sake of religion. His words were living codes, designed to awaken those with ears to hear. When he said, "The kingdom of God is within you," it wasn't metaphor, it was instruction. A reminder that the very force which shaped the stars also lives in your breath. That same force whispers through numbers that follow you, symbols that repeat, names you hear more than once, dreams that seem to bleed into your waking life. These are the sacred breadcrumbs placed by the Spirit, calling you home. You may have noticed the patterns, waking at certain times, seeing repeating numbers, feeling something shift in the air before anything happens. You may dismiss them at first, but they persist, not loud, but relentless. That's how Yeshua spoke too. Not in force, but in frequency. His clues were never about control. They were invitations. Each one asks, "Will you follow the thread?" Sometimes these signs come as a nudge to leave a place, end a relationship, walk away from what looks stable but feels wrong. Other times they come as flashes of knowing, sudden clarity in the middle of chaos. They may seem small, but they are anything but. Each one is a moment when eternity intersects with your timeline, a divine collision. And every time you choose to respond instead of ignore, you align closer with who you truly are. Yeshua never forced awakening. He didn't come to demand obedience. He came to show what it looks like when heaven moves through flesh, when a divine being walks fully in remembrance. That same blueprint lives in you. That same invitation echoes every time you feel a pull you can't explain, a longing you can't shake. He left clues for those who carry the same light, not as instructions to follow, but as reminders of what you already know. The world will often tell you you're imagining things, that your visions, instincts, and inner knowings are just emotions or illusions. But deep down, you know the difference. You know when something carries weight, when it isn't just a thought, it's a message. And when these messages show up, they don't just make you think, they make you remember. Every sign is part of a larger conversation, one that didn't start in this life and won't end here either. The sacred signs are more than comfort. They are maps. And Yeshua placed them not for the many, but for the few who would look twice, feel deeper, and recognize the truth behind the veil. But if these clues are guiding you somewhere beyond the illusion, there is a war that rages beyond the limits of your physical senses, a battle not for land or power, but for your soul. It's not fought with weapons, but with frequencies, with deception, with silence. You can feel it when your spirit is restless for no reason, when your thoughts are at war with your peace, when your intuition screams one thing and the world demands another. This war didn't start when you were born. It's ancient, and you've been a part of it far longer than you know. The battleground is consciousness. What you believe, what you remember, what you align with. Every day, you are surrounded by systems designed to shape your perception, bend your reality, and distract you from the deeper truths that pulse beneath the surface of this world. Truth is dangerous to those who profit from lies, and so the strategy has always been the same: confuse, divide, exhaust. If they can keep you numb, disconnected, and searching outside of yourself, they've already won half the battle. You've probably noticed how intense everything feels lately, how time itself seems to be bending, how reality shifts from one moment to the next, as if something behind the scenes is unraveling. That's because it is. The illusion is cracking. Light is flooding into places that were long buried in shadow, and with that light comes resistance. The forces that once worked in secrecy are now exposed, and they are desperate to maintain their grip. Because when one soul awakens fully, it ripples across dimensions. You are not a passive participant in this war, you are the reason for it. Your soul carries codes, frequencies, and wisdom that threaten the foundations of false power. And even if you've forgotten the fullness of what you are, the enemy hasn't. They remember. That's why you've been under pressure. That's why life tried to break you early. Not because you were weak,
but because your remembrance had to be delayed until the appointed time. This is that time. But the battle isn't just external, it's internal. It shows up in your decisions, your thoughts, your willingness to stand in your truth when it's inconvenient or costly. Every moment you choose alignment over approval, presence over distraction, love over fear, you shift something, not just in your life but in the collective field. You disrupt the false grid and strengthen the divine one. And yet, in the heart of this war, there is hope. Yeshua once said, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." But freedom comes with a cost. To stand in truth, you must be willing to leave behind every comfortable lie. To walk a narrow path few dare to tread. He showed us what it means to carry light into darkness, not with fear, but with authority. That same authority rests in you, waiting to be reclaimed. Still, one question remains. If this war for your soul has been raging since before time, and you were placed in this generation by divine timing, what is it about now that makes your awakening so critical? Your name is not just a sound, it's a frequency, a vibration of purpose encoded with layers of truth the world was never meant to understand. From the moment you arrived here, attempts were made to redefine you, not just your physical name, but your essence, your spiritual identity. They called you by labels that dimmed your light, too sensitive, too intense, too different. But none of those names were ever yours. They were covers placed over something sacred. Because your true name carries power, and power always draws resistance. In ancient times, names were revelations. They were not chosen for beauty or trend. They were spoken as destiny. A name told the story of a soul. And just like in those times, your spiritual identity has always been more than your earthly title. It holds the memory of who you were before the programming, before the world told you who to be. The forces that seek control knew this. That's why the first thing they did was bury your name beneath noise, trauma, culture, and conformity. Because once you speak your real name, once you become it, the illusion no longer holds. This is why you've always felt a pull to something deeper. A silent urgency to discover who you truly are, not just in form but in origin. It's why you've looked at the stars and felt homesick, why your heart aches when you hear words that seem to come from another realm. Your name is not something you find, it's something you remember, and it lives beneath the layers of what you've survived. You might not be able to articulate it yet, but you've felt it. Those moments when something speaks to you so directly, it bypasses logic and pierces your spirit. Those are echoes of your true name being whispered back to you, not in the language of the world, but in the language of light. It isn't always heard with ears. Sometimes it's felt in silence, in tears, in the heat of your chest when truth touches you. That's the sound of remembrance rising. Yeshua understood the power of names. He often renamed those he called. Simon became Peter, Saul became Paul, not to erase them, but to reveal them. He didn't give them a new identity. He revealed the one that had always been written in them. He saw the soul beneath the mask, the mission beneath the man. And that same revelation is coming for you. Slowly, in pieces, until the false names fall away and only your divine essence remains. You were never meant to carry names that bind you to fear, shame, or limitation. Those names were assigned by a world that benefits from your silence. But now, the vibration is shifting. The veil is thinning, and your true name is beginning to rise like a buried artifact catching the light for the first time in centuries. Still, the question presses deeper. If your real name holds a power they feared, and remembering it marks the end of their control, then what happens when you finally speak it aloud and become what you were always meant to be? They told you to look for him in the clouds, in the sky, in the distance, far removed from your current reality. They taught you to wait, to watch, to anticipate a dramatic return that would come with signs and wonders. And while they looked outward, they missed what was already beginning within. Because Yeshua never said he would return to simply walk beside you. He said the Spirit would dwell in you. What if the return they feared most wasn't his appearance on a throne, but his awakening within the ones carrying his essence? You were never meant to only follow his path. You were meant to embody it. Every act of love in the face of hatred, every moment of clarity in a world built on confusion, every refusal to compromise truth for approval, that is Yeshua living through you. This isn't about religion. It's not about performance. It's about resonance. His light didn't leave when he ascended. It fractured and scattered into those who would come after him, those who would carry his frequency through generations, hidden in plain sight. This is why your journey has never made sense to others, why you've walked through the fire while others stayed comfortable, why your heart carries a compassion too deep to explain and a strength that refuses to break. You've felt the cost of love, the ache of truth, the loneliness of walking in a direction no one else seems to understand. These are the markers of the ones he moves through. These are the signs of the rise they feared. For centuries, systems have tried to control his image, to institutionalize his message, to contain his spirit within rules and rituals. But you've always felt that he couldn't be caged, that he was more than doctrine. He was a living current calling out from within your own chest. Every time you chose grace instead of bitterness, truth instead of silence, healing instead of harm, you weren't just making a good decision. You were channeling something sacred, his presence, his return. Yeshua once said, "Whoever believes in me will also do the works that I do, and greater works than these will he do." That wasn't metaphor. That was prophecy. A prophecy not about one person in the sky, but about many awakened from within. You are the greater works. You are the continuation, not to take his place, but to take your place within him. This is the rise they feared, not an army of violence, but of vision, not of conquest, but of consciousness, a collective remembering, a silent revolution led by those who carry peace like a sword and light like fire. You don't need permission to be this. You only need permission to stop hiding it. So if Yeshua's return is not just an event, but a manifestation through those aligned with his truth, if you are part of that unfolding reality, what does that mean for everything around you? What happens when the divine no longer knocks from outside, but begins to speak through your every word, your every breath, your every step forward from here? You were never meant to stay hidden. You were never meant to remain small, silent, or subdued. From the beginning, everything about you was designed to rise. Your voice, your vision, your very presence. And yet, the world has done everything it can to convince you otherwise. It tried to tame your wild spirit, clip the wings of your imagination, and drown out the sound of your calling. Because the ones in power have always known something you're only now beginning to remember. When you rise, their illusion falls. This rise is not loud in the way they expected. It doesn't come with banners or announcements. It doesn't look like rebellion on the surface. It begins slowly, in the quiet of your heart, in the breaking of old chains, in the moment you stop apologizing for your light. It grows in your decision to trust the unseen, to move forward when there's no map, to speak even when your voice shakes. And piece by piece, you become what they never wanted you to be, fully awake. What they feared wasn't just your power, it was your remembrance. Because once you remember who you are, you stop looking to them for direction. You stop searching for validation in broken systems. You stop asking for permission to exist, and in that moment, you become ungovernable, not in lawlessness, but in sovereignty. You become the mirror they tried to shatter, the fire they tried to smother, the voice that echoes through every wall built to contain you. You've likely noticed the resistance grow stronger the closer you get to your truth. It's not a sign you're off track. It's confirmation you're right on time. The friction isn't there to stop you, it's there to test the foundation of your awakening. And every time you choose to keep going, you prove that their grip is slipping. You prove that what was once hidden cannot be hidden anymore. There are others like you, scattered across the world, feeling the same tremble in their bones, the same pull in their spirit. You're not alone in this. You're part of a rising tide, a spiritual migration of souls that are remembering in unison. You may never meet them all, but you'll recognize them when you do. There will be no need for long explanations. Your eyes will say enough. The light will recognize itself. You were never a mistake. You are the answer to a question the world has been too afraid to ask. Your journey was never just about healing or surviving. It was always about becoming. Becoming the one they hoped would never arrive. Becoming the embodiment of everything the false world cannot explain. Becoming the living proof that truth, no matter how long it is buried, always rises. So now, with everything shifting, with the veil thinning, and your soul standing at the threshold, one question remains. If your rise was prophesied long before this life began, and the systems of deception are crumbling beneath your feet,